Welcome back to the Critical Analysis Hub. Today, we're diving into a fascinating what-if scenario from Game of Thrones. This time, we're asking, what if Bran Stark never fell from the tower? As we know, this event is one of the most pivotal in the series. It set off a chain reaction that had ripple effects across all of Westeros and beyond. So, what happens if we remove that moment? How does it change the fate of the Starks, the power struggles in the Seven Kingdoms, and even the battle against the White Walkers? Well, let's start by briefly looking at what happened in the original timeline. In the original timeline, Bran Stark climbs the tower at Winterfell and accidentally witnesses Jaime and Cersei Lannister engaging in their incestuous relationship. To protect their secret, Jaime pushes Bran from the tower, leaving him paralyzed. This event sets off a series of crucial moments. Catelyn Stark becomes obsessed with finding out who tried to kill her son, leading her to suspect foul play. She leaves Winterfell to bring evidence to her husband, Ned Stark, who is in King's Landing. Her absence leaves Winterfell more vulnerable. Ned starts to piece together the mystery of Joffrey's parentage, a discovery that ultimately costs him his life. And, most importantly, Bran's fall leads to his journey of awakening his abilities as a warg, and later becoming the Three-Eyed Raven. This role becomes critical in the fight against the Night King. The fall is the catalyst that accelerates the conflict between the Starks and Lannisters, leading to war, betrayal, and eventually a chain reaction that reverberates throughout the Seven Kingdoms. Now, let's jump into our alternate scenario. What if Bran never climbed the tower, or, more importantly, never fell from it? In this alternate timeline, Bran doesn't witness Jaime and Cersei's secret. As a result, Jaime doesn't push him, and Bran continues his training as a young Stark. He's active, healthy, and never becomes paralyzed. This one change has immediate effects. First off, the Stark family dynamics would remain relatively stable for a while. Bran would continue learning archery, swordplay, and the responsibilities of managing Winterfell. Ned Stark, the Lord of Winterfell, would see him as a future leader, rather than someone in need of constant care. Catelyn Stark's role would also shift. In the original timeline, Catelyn is consumed with caring for Bran and eventually leaves Winterfell to find justice for him. Without Bran's injury, she stays at Winterfell, focusing on her duties and supporting her husband's efforts. This means she would never arrest Tyrion Lannister on suspicion of plotting against her son, an event that was crucial in escalating tensions between the Starks and Lannisters. Now, let's think about how this affects the Lannisters. If Bran doesn't fall, the Lannister twins' secret remains hidden, at least for a while longer. This changes everything. Without Bran as a witness, Jaime and Cersei can continue their relationship without fear of exposure, making them bolder in their actions. This might allow them to maneuver with more confidence in King's Landing. It also means that the attempt on Bran's life never occurs, so the conflict between the Starks and Lannisters doesn't escalate early on. Tyrion would never be accused, which means no trial at the Eyrie and no dramatic rescue by Bran. This secrecy might give the Lannisters a longer period of stability in King's Landing, but it also means that Ned Stark, when he arrives as Hand of the King, has a more difficult time uncovering their secret. Without Catelyn's involvement, and without the evidence from the assassination attempt, it would take Ned much longer to piece things together, if he ever does. So what happens to Ned Stark? Without the urgency of Bran's condition, Ned might still go to King's Landing to serve Robert Baratheon, but his timeline could be delayed. If he goes later, the political landscape might be different, perhaps allowing him to build alliances or prepare better for the dangers ahead. Even if he does go on the same timeline, without Catelyn traveling to investigate, he has fewer resources and information at his disposal. This makes his investigation into Joffrey's parentage much slower. He may never find out the truth before being outmaneuvered by Cersei and Littlefinger. His life could either end the same way it did, through betrayal and execution, or he might survive longer due to a different set of circumstances and make a calculated escape back to Winterfell. Now, let's talk about Robb Stark. Without Bran's fall, the chain reaction that drives the Starks to war is delayed. Robb doesn't have to raise an army so quickly, meaning the North remains at peace for longer. This changes everything. In this scenario, the North could remain neutral for a longer period, potentially allowing the Starks to negotiate alliances with other houses, like the Vale, or even strengthen ties with the Riverlands in a more calculated manner. Robb might have had more time to prepare and strategize, making the North's position stronger when war eventually comes. Additionally, the political alliances would play out differently. Without the immediate pressure to go to war, Robb might never make the impulsive choice to marry Talisa, avoiding the fallout with House Frey. The Red Wedding might never occur, or it might happen under different circumstances, changing the fate of the Northern Army and the Stark family. One of the most significant changes revolves around Bran's journey as the Three-Eyed Raven. In the original timeline, his fall leads him to the path of warging and developing his mystical abilities. Without the fall, Bran never discovers these powers, and the Three-Eyed Raven must seek another successor. Who could that be? Jon Snow, Arya, or another character we haven't considered might be called upon to take up the mantle. Alternatively, the Three-Eyed Raven may be forced to interfere directly, revealing his presence much earlier and perhaps drastically altering the events north of the Wall. Without Bran's insight and ability to walk into animals, and later into Hodor and even the Night King's army, humanity's fight against the White Walkers might have been doomed, or, at the very least, fought on very different terms. As a recap, here are 7 things that would differ in this timeline. Ned Stark's execution. Without Bran's fall, the investigation into the Lannisters' secret might take longer or never happen, meaning Ned would not confront Cersei as early. This could prevent his betrayal and execution, allowing him to remain alive and influential for much longer. Tyrion Lannister's arrest. Catelyn Stark would never suspect Tyrion of the assassination attempt on Bran. As a result, she would not arrest him, which means Tyrion would never be brought to the Eyrie, and his trial by combat would never occur. Bronn's rise as a key player. Without Tyrion's arrest, Bronn would not be hired to fight for him at the Eyrie. As a result, Bronn might have remained an unknown sellsword, and his later involvement in the wars and politics of Westeros, including his alliance with Jaime and Cersei, would never take place. The Stark and Lannister War. Bran's fall and the subsequent events escalate tensions between the Starks and the Lannisters, leading to open conflict. Without it, the two houses might remain at peace for much longer, delaying or even preventing the War of the Five Kings. Robb Stark's rebellion. With no immediate threat or act of aggression against his family, Robb Stark might not need to rally the Northern Lords into rebellion. Without this rebellion, Events like his marriage to Talisa and the betrayal of House Frey at the Red Wedding would likely never occur. The Red Wedding. If Robb Stark never launches a rebellion, he doesn't need to rely on House Frey's support, meaning the infamous Red Wedding would never happen. This could mean that the Stark family remains intact and continues to rule the North unchallenged. Bran's journey north and becoming the Three-Eyed Raven. Without Bran's paralysis, he wouldn't embark on the journey beyond the Wall, which means he never becomes the Three-Eyed Raven. This absence would have massive consequences for the fight against the White Walkers and the eventual Battle of Winterfell. As a bonus, number 8, Arya Stark's transformation into an assassin. Arya's motivation to train as an assassin stems from the deaths and betrayals that befall her family, including her father's execution and the Red Wedding. Without these tragedies, Arya may never leave Westeros to train in Braavos, meaning her entire character arc as a faceless man would be drastically altered, or wouldn't happen at all. As we've explored, Bran's fall from the tower was a small but pivotal event that shaped so much of the story in Game of Thrones. Without it, Westeros could have seen a completely different power structure, one where the Starks and Lannisters remained at peace longer, and the threat from the north took on a different form. Would Ned Stark have survived longer in this timeline? Could the North have mustered enough strength to repel any southern threat without the losses they faced early on? And most importantly, how would the fight against the White Walkers play out without Bran's crucial role? It's a fascinating thought experiment, and I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this breakdown and want to explore more alternate histories and deep dives into Game of Thrones, make sure to like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.